The shriek of alarms clawed through the Kepler station, a discordant symphony against the usual hum of life support. Jax Riley, his gut twisting with a sickening familiarity, slammed his fist against the console. Diagnostics scrolled across the screen, a cascade of red alerts painting a grim picture: primary oxygen scrubbers offline, atmospheric integrity compromised, emergency backups failing. The station, humanity's fragile foothold in the swirling chaos of Cygnus, was suffocating. He'd seen this before, felt this icy dread crawl up his spine. The colony ship, the Arcadia, his family. The memory, a phantom limb of guilt, pulsed with renewed agony. No, not again. This time would be different. Riley to all hands, Emergency Protocol 7, Jax barked into the comm, his voice strained but firm. Seal off affected sections, reroute auxiliary power to backup scrubbers. We have maybe 20 minutes before atmospheric collapse. His fingers flew across the console, a desperate dance against the ticking clock. Every breath, every flicker of the failing lights, was a painful reminder of his past failure. But this wasn't just about redemption, not anymore. This was about the lives of everyone on Kepler station, entrusted to his skill, to his damned obsession with fail-safe life support. Then, a flicker on his long-range sensors, something approaching from the depths of Cygnus. Not Zidonian, their signature was unmistakable, jagged and aggressive. This was different, organic, almost rhythmic. Before he could analyze the signal, the station's main viewport shimmered, revealing a figure unlike any he'd ever seen. A humanoid shape, but with vast, bioluminescent wings that rippled with the currents of the gas giant. Her skin, a delicate shade of violet, seemed to absorb and reflect the swirling colors of Cygnus. Large, intelligent eyes, the color of liquid mercury, met his gaze. Lyra. He knew her name somehow, a whisper carried on the winds of Cygnus. Her voice, a melodic chime transmitted directly into his comms, startled him. Human, your station is failing. I can help. Distrust warred with desperation. Could he trust her? An alien, emerging from the depths of a world humanity barely understood. Yet, his options were rapidly dwindling. How he managed, his voice hoarse. Cygnus provides, Lyra replied, her voice echoing with an ancient wisdom. But she is wounded, and her gifts are fading. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the console. This was insane, a gamble on a being beyond his comprehension. But the suffocating air, the rising panic of the crew echoing in his ears, left him no choice. Do it, he whispered, the words barely audible above the alarms. Lyra moved with a grace that defied the station's artificial gravity. She approached a wall panel, her delicate fingers tracing the contours of the human technology. Then, to Jax's astonishment, her hand seemed to merge with the metal, her bioluminescence pulsing with a vibrant energy. He felt a shift in the station's systems, a surge of power flowing from an unknown source. The alarms, one by one, began to fall silent. The air, thick and heavy moments before, became breathable again. He stared at Lyra, his mind struggling to comprehend what he had just witnessed. Thank you, he breathed, feeling a strange mix of gratitude and awe. Lyra met his gaze, her expression unreadable. We are connected, human, she said, her voice soft. The fate of your station, and my people, are intertwined with the breath of Cygnus. In that moment, amidst the wreckage of his near failure and the bewildering presence of this alien being, Jax knew that his life, and perhaps the fate of humanity, had irrevocably changed. The shimmering residue of Lyra's intervention still clung to the station systems, a faint bioluminescent glow tracing the conduits like veins. Jax, his heart still pounding against his ribs, watched the reading stabilize, a fragile calm settling over the ravaged station. The near disaster had left him shaken, but a strange, unsettling curiosity about Lyra tugged at him, stronger than the exhaustion and lingering fear. He had to understand what had happened, how this alien being had saved them from certain death. He accessed the station logs, searching for any trace of the event, any clue to Lyra's methods. He found distortions, anomalies in the energy flow, as if Cygnus itself had breathed life back into the dying station. Then he saw it, a faint energy signature preceding Lyra's arrival, a pattern that resonated with Zidonian technology. Sabotage. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The Zidonians hadn't just been posturing, they were actively working to destabilize human operations in Cygnus. Armed with this knowledge, Jax prepared a small reconnaissance vessel, its hull reinforced against the turbulent currents of the gas giant's upper atmosphere. He needed to find Lyra, to understand her connection to Cygnus, and to warn her about the Zidonians. As he descended into the swirling, multicolored depths of Cygnus, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was falling into the unknown, a realm far beyond human comprehension. He found her on a floating island, a breathtaking tapestry of bioluminescent flora and fauna, woven together by what seemed to be living strands of Cygnus's own atmosphere. Lyra stood at the edge of the island, her wings catching the light, her gaze fixed on the swirling nebulae in the distance. "You came," she said, her voice a melodic chime in his helmet comms, as if she had sensed his arrival. "I had to," Jax replied, his voice echoing strangely in the alien environment. "I needed to understand what you did. And to warn you." He explained his findings, the evidence of Zidonian sabotage. Lyra's expression, initially serene, hardened. "They poisoned Cygnus," she whispered, her voice laced with sorrow. "They do not understand her delicate balance." As Jax watched her, a strange protectiveness welled up inside him. This alien, so different, so connected to this alien world, evoked a deep empathy he hadn't felt since his family. He reached out a gloved hand, hesitantly, almost fearing that his touch might harm her delicate form. "We can stop them," he said, his voice firm. "Together." Lyra turned to him, her large, mercury-colored eyes searching his. For a long moment, they stood in silence, the swirling chaos of Cygnus a backdrop to their fragile connection. Then, she placed her hand, cool and smooth, on his glove. A faint electrical current pulsed between them, not unpleasant, but unsettling, a bridge between two vastly different worlds. "My people, the air of, we are fading," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "Cygnus is weakening, and we are bound to her. We have hidden ourselves for too long, afraid of the outsiders. But perhaps you are different." The vulnerability in her voice struck a chord deep within Jax. He saw not just an alien, but a being fighting for survival, burdened by a responsibility far heavier than his own. In that moment, he knew he wouldn't leave her to face this threat alone. Even if it meant risking everything, even his chance of returning to Earth, a place that held only ghosts now. He would stay, and he would help. Because somehow, in this alien world, he had found something he hadn't realized he was searching for: a connection, a purpose beyond his own redemption. The air of island pulsed with a life Jax could barely comprehend. Bioluminescent flora swayed in unseen currents, casting an ethereal glow on Lyra's violet skin. He had removed his helmet, trusting the alien atmosphere she assured him was compatible, at least for a short time. The air tasted sweet, with a faint metallic tang, like the scent of a distant storm. They worked side by side in a biolab woven from living vines and crystalline structures, analyzing the energy signature Jax had captured. Lyra's fingers, cool and smooth, moved with a practiced grace, manipulating instruments that seemed to grow and adapt to her touch. Jax, clumsy in comparison, fumbled with his own equipment, acutely aware of his humanness in this alien world. "The Zidonians believe Cygnus is a resource to be exploited," Lyra said, her voice tinged with sadness. "They do not understand her fragility, her interconnectedness." Jax watched her, the soft glow of the lab illuminating her expressive eyes. He saw the weight of her people's fate on her shoulders, the burden of a dying world. He felt an overwhelming urge to comfort her, to share that burden, a feeling so foreign, so unexpected, it startled him. "We'll find a way to stop them," he said, the conviction in his voice stronger than he felt. Lyra met his gaze, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "My people believe in symbiosis, in balance," she said. Perhaps humans and Erev can find a balance too." Later, as they walked along the edge of the island, Lyra spoke of the Erev's symbiotic relationship with Cygnus, how they drew sustenance from the gas giant's unique energies, how they nurtured and protected its delicate ecosystem. But the balance was shifting, Cygnus was weakening, and the Air of were fading with her. We have kept our struggles hidden, fearing interference from the outside, Lyra confessed, her voice barely a whisper. But now, I believe we need your help. Jack stopped, turning to face her. The wind whipped around them, carrying the whispers of Cygnus. He reached out, hesitantly, his gloved hand hovering near her arm. He wasn't sure if his touch would harm her, if their biologies were too different. But Lyra didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned into his touch, the contact sending a shiver down his spine. It wasn't a sexual touch, but something deeper, a connection of souls. I won't let them take Cygnus from you, he said, the words resonating with a newfound purpose. He knew, in that moment, that he was no longer driven solely by his past failures. He had found a new purpose, a new hope, in this alien world, in this extraordinary being. That night, Lyra took a risk, a leap of faith. She used her connection to Cygnus to send a message directly into the Zidonian flagship, a plea for understanding, for cooperation. It was a dangerous gamble, one that could expose her people's vulnerability, but she believed in Jack's, in the possibility of a different future. The Zidonian response was swift and brutal. They launched a surprise attack on the Kepler station, interpreting Lyra's message as a sign of weakness. Jax, back on the station, fought desperately to defend it, his mind racing, his heart pounding with fear, not for himself, but for Lyra, for the fragile hope they had begun to build. He had a choice, stay and defend the station, or return to the Air of Island, try to protect Lyra. The thought of abandoning her, of leaving her to face the Zidonians alone, was unbearable. He gave the order to evacuate the station, then turned his ship towards the swirling depths of Cygnus, towards Lyra, towards a future he couldn't even begin to imagine, but one he was determined to fight for. His dream of returning to Earth, to the ghosts of his past, faded into insignificance. His future, he realized, was here, with Lyra, amidst the whispers of the Cygnus deep. The Zidonian ultimatum crackled across Jax's comms, a cold, reptilian voice demanding the immediate cessation of all human activity within the Cygnus system. Their patience, it hissed, had been exhausted. The sabotage of the Kepler station, a brazen act of aggression disguised as a malfunction, had been a mere demonstration of their power. Jax felt a chill run down his spine, not for himself, but for Lyra, for the heir of, whose existence was now more precarious than ever. He had promised to protect her, her people, this fragile ecosystem. How could he have been so naive to believe diplomacy was possible? Lyra's image shimmered on his console, her usually vibrant bioluminescence dimmed, her large eyes clouded with fear. They do not understand, she whispered, her voice laced with despair. They see only resources, not life. He wanted to reach through the screen, to touch her, to offer comfort, but the vastness of space stretched between them, a tangible barrier to the connection they had begun to forge. "We'll find a way," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. He had to be strong, for both of them. "My people, we are not warriors," Lyra said, her voice heavy with resignation. "We have always sought balance, harmony." Jax's mind raced, searching for a solution, a way to protect the heir of, to buy them time. He looked at the schematics of the Kepler station's defense systems, rudimentary compared to Zidonian weaponry, yet an idea began to form. He could integrate the heir of's bioengineering, their symbiotic connection with Cygnus, into the station's systems, creating a living defense, something the Zidonians couldn't predict. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was their only hope. He explained his plan to Lyra, his words tumbling over each other in his urgency. He needed her trust, her cooperation, her unique understanding of Cygnus. Lyra listened intently, her eyes widening as she grasped the potential of his idea. It was a fusion of their cultures, of their knowledge, a testament to the fragile alliance they had forged. "It is possible," she said slowly, her voice filled with a cautious hope. "But it will require a deeper connection, a merging of our energies with Cygnus." The merging, she explained, would require physical contact, a direct transfer of bioenergy between her and the station systems. It was a risky procedure, one that could drain her strength, weaken her connection to Cygnus, but she didn't hesitate. He watched her on the main viewport screen, her silhouette a dark outline against the swirling colors of Cygnus as she approached the station. His heart pounded in his chest, a mixture of fear and awe. He had to trust her, trust this alien being with his life, with the lives of everyone on the station. When she arrived, she moved with a fluid grace, her wings rippling as she floated through the station's docking bay. He met her at the entrance to the main control room, the air thick with unspoken tension. "Jax," she breathed, her voice soft, her mercury eyes searching his. He reached out, his gloved hand hovering inches from her arm, unsure if his touch would harm her delicate form. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice hoarse. She leaned into his touch, her skin cool and smooth against his glove. A faint electrical current pulsed between them, not unpleasant, but startling, a bridge between two vastly different worlds. He felt a surge of protective energy, a fierce desire to keep her safe, to shield her from the coming storm. He led her to the central console, where he had prepared the interface. The Zidonian fleet was approaching, their warships casting long, ominous shadows across the swirling nebulae. "We have to hurry," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Lyra nodded, her gaze unwavering. She placed her hand on the console, her bioluminescence pulsing with a vibrant energy. He watched, mesmerized, as her energy flowed into the station systems, merging with the human technology, creating a symphony of light and sound. Then, the attack began. Zidonian energy blasts slammed against the station's shields, but this time, something was different. The station, infused with Lyra's energy, seemed to breathe, to pulse with the power of Cygnus. The shield shimmered, deflecting the Zidonian attacks with an unexpected resilience. Lyra swayed, her strength fading. "It is working," she whispered, her voice weak. But the Zidonians, enraged by their initial failure, intensified their assault. The station shuddered under the barrage, warning lights flashing, alarms screaming. Jax knew they couldn't hold out much longer. He had to make a choice, continue the defense, or evacuate, save Lyra before it was too late. He looked at her, her face pale, her breath coming in ragged gasps. He couldn't abandon her, not now, not when they were so close. He sent out a distress signal to the nearest human fleet, a desperate plea for reinforcements. Then, he gently lifted Lyra into his arms, her body light and fragile against his. "We have to go," he said, his voice strained. She looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and understanding. She knew he was sacrificing his chance to return to Earth, to the ghosts of his past, to stay with her, to fight for their shared future. As the station's shields finally buckled under the Zidonian onslaught, Jax piloted a small escape pod towards the swirling depths of Cygnus, towards the hidden sanctuary of the Aerev, towards an uncertain future, but one he now knew he would face with Lyra by his side. The Kepler station, humanity's fragile foothold in Cygnus, was lost. But in the heart of the gas giant, a new hope, a new connection, had been forged, a whisper of unity amidst the chaos of war. The Aerev island, usually a sanctuary of vibrant bioluminescence, was shrouded in an unnatural gloom. Lyra knelt by the crystalline pool at the heart of the island, her wings drooping, her normally radiant skin dull. The Zidonian attack on Kepler station, a direct response to her plea for peace, had shaken her to her core. She had gambled on Jax, on humanity, and she had lost. Not only had she failed to prevent the conflict, but she had also inadvertently exposed her people's vulnerability, their dependence on a weakening Cygnus. Shame and despair washed over her, heavier than the swirling gases of her home world. Jax's voice, strained and crackling over the comms, broke through her despair. "Lyra, are you there? Report." She flinched, guilt twisting in her gut. How could she face him, admit her failure? "Jax!" "The station, it's gone," he interrupted, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "But I'm okay." "I'm coming to you." Relief washed over her, so potent it almost brought her to her knees. He was alive. But the Kepler station, humanity's foothold in Cygnus, was destroyed. Her gamble had cost them dearly. When Jax's escape pod landed on the island, he emerged looking haggard, his face streaked with soot, his eyes filled with a haunted weariness. He saw her standing by the pool, her wings drooping, and his expression softened. He crossed the distance between them, his steps hesitant, as if unsure of his welcome. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice raw with emotion. He reached out, his hand hovering inches from her arm, his touch tentative, respectful. She leaned into his touch, the contact sending a wave of warmth through her chilled body. I failed," she murmured, her voice choked with tears. "I believed. I hoped." He gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that streamed down her cheeks. "You didn't fail," he said, his voice soft, reassuring. "You took a risk, a leap of faith. It didn't work, not this time. But we'll find another way." His words, his touch, his presence, were a balm to her wounded spirit. He didn't blame her, didn't reject her. He understood. In that moment, amidst the wreckage of their hopes, a new bond formed between them, stronger, deeper than before. They worked tirelessly, Jax and Lyra, alongside the heir of elders, to devise a new plan. The Zidonians, emboldened by their victory at Kepler Station, were tightening their grip on Cygnus, their warships casting long, ominous shadows across the swirling nebulae. Time was running out. Jax proposed a daring, almost reckless plan, to use the heir's unique connection to Cygnus to disrupt the Zidonians' communication network, blinding them, giving humanity a chance to regroup and counterattack. It was a risky maneuver, one that could sever the heir's already weakening connection to Cygnus, but Lyra didn't hesitate. She trusted Jax, trusted his ingenuity, his determination. She knew that together, they had a chance, however slim. The merging, the ritual that would link Lyra's consciousness to the very fabric of Cygnus, was more intense than anything Jax had ever witnessed. Lyra stood at the heart of the island, surrounded by a circle of heir of elders, their bioluminescent wings pulsing in unison. Jax watched from a distance, his heart pounding in his chest, a mixture of fear and awe. He couldn't understand the intricacies of the heir's bioengineering, but he could feel the power, the raw energy that flowed through Lyra, connecting her to the very essence of Cygnus. He saw her sway, her body trembling, her face contorted in concentration. He wanted to rush to her side, to protect her, but he knew he couldn't interfere. This was her fight, her people's fight, and he could only stand by and watch, his heart aching with a love he couldn't fully comprehend. Then, as quickly as it began, the ritual ended. Lyra collapsed, her wings still, her skin pale. Jax rushed to her side, his arms wrapping around her fragile form. "Lyra," he whispered, his voice filled with concern. She opened her eyes, a faint smile gracing her lips. "It is done," she murmured, her voice weak. "The Zidonians, they are blind." A wave of relief washed over Jax, so potent it almost brought him to his knees. They had done it. Together, they had found a way to fight back. He looked at Lyra, her face pale, her breath shallow, but her eyes shining with a fierce determination. In that moment, he knew he had found something worth fighting for, something more precious than his own redemption, than his dream of returning home. He had found a home here, in this alien world, in the heart of this extraordinary being. The future was uncertain, the fight far from over. But as Jax held Lyra close, their bodies pressed together, their hearts beating in unison, he knew they would face whatever came, together. The whispers of Cygnus, once a mystery, now a shared language, spoke of hope, of unity, of a love that transcended the boundaries of worlds, of species, of everything they had ever known.